I burned my thumb. I was stirring the tomato sauce and it exploded and hit me right on the thumb, and it is the worst burn I've had in years. It hurts so bad. It's like blistered. Yeah, it's horrible. It's like throbbing.
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. As always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. The usual, we might ease into spoil. We're going to spoil. We're going to talk about watch it first if you care.
We're talking about Dickinson.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Apple. It's Apple TV Plus.
Sure.
Apple Plus? Apple TV.
No idea.
Apple TV is a device.
Yes.
So it's Apple TV Plus show.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to be talking about Dickinson.
Yeah.
The Hailee Steinfeld fronted quasi biographical.
Yeah, it's like what we were saying, it was sort of like another period meets Little Women.
Yeah, well, it's they're millennials.
Yeah.
I have one purpose.
Wild nights.
And that is to become a great writer.
You need to cut out these sort of antics.
We're definitely gonna have a war.
We're talking exclusively about season 1 today because we've only watched season 1. I watched, well, I thought I watched all of it last year, but it turns out I watched about half of it.
Yeah.
But, because I think I even had it on my year-end list last year.
Oh.
One of the reasons why I'm insisting that we do this is because I think that this show is better than what it's gotten credit and than its reception has been.
I think the thing about that is that because Apple TV was so...
Well,
yeah.
What little of Apple TV Plus I have watched, I've really enjoyed, but they're getting sort of caught in the undertow of the streaming wars. And I don't know that that's necessarily a problem because, I mean, to the victor goes the spoils, but
I think it's weirdly like a more niche streaming service somehow. So it's like we didn't get Apple TV until you logged in like a month ago on our TV. Otherwise, we would have probably been watching some of this stuff. Like, I definitely would have watched the Chris Evans show, but I didn't have a way to watch it, and I wasn't. It wasn't always my top of mind thing to think about.
Well, I am an Apple person. I'm a Mac person. I'm a Mac user.
You don't say.
Although, if you ask me, especially these past 10 years, I think that they've tripped over their dick a little bit, where they've gotten complacent in their supremacy.
Well, complacent and also even more dickish somehow, because it's like, I don't need you to run down the battery life on my phone. Like, I haven't had an iPhone in like 6 or 7 years because I just stopped liking the updates.
No, I haven't had that issue, but it's the kind of thing that it's like my current iPhone is water resistant. And it's like, there have been waterproof phones for 7 years now. And it's like, you're kind of, I mean, unless the technology...
You can dunk those Nokias in like a vat of sauce and it would be okay. So like...
well, I was about to say, unless the technology is still not, unless they don't feel confident enough in it to employ this technology, yada, yada, yada. Regardless, I think somehow, like I said, I think they got complacent in their supremacy. And I think they came... it was a little bit of a too little too late type of a thing when they were coming onto the scene. Having said that, though, what I have seen, I have really enjoyed. And especially because it does merge with my iTunes. And so back from, 2005, when I didn't have a DVR and was buying episodes of Lost because I had class. All that stuff is now on my Apple TV Plus. All those years of the Soup episodes and all of the Comedy Central Presents and stuff. And so that's further to my point that I'm that far removed from iTunes.
Sure.
The last thing I bought on iTunes was in 2009. You know what I mean?
It's not even really existent anymore, right? It's Apple Music now, but it's like sort of rebranded.
There's still a store. Yeah. I am loyal to the company within reason, but regardless, I think some of the stuff is good. And I think a lot of stuff is good. And I kind of want to give it a chance. I've also watched 2 episodes of The Morning Show, and I kind of fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Well, it's got big dick energy. It feels like it should be a prestige like HBO or Showtime show.
But it's like dirtier than that, right?
But yeah, it's like
it's
like between HBO and like E.
Yeah. Sweet.
Like it's kind of trashy in a way that, and I mean not necessarily content. Yes, content, but also it's like it's not too sophisticated. Is my point.
Sure,
like your mom will be fine. We'll keep up with it just fine.
The royal your mom.
Yeah. So we might get into it depending on, we're in a little bit of a
content rut a little.
Mm-hmm.
That's rich. There's a movie coming out on Netflix every week this year.
Yeah, but I mean, not to be.
No, not all of them are going to be winners.
They're going to be gems.
Sure. For sure.
So yeah, maybe we'll get into it. But based off of the reception, the overwhelmingly positive reception I feel of Bridgerton, I was kind of like, you know what?
We should
circle back to Dickinson, because it's really doing Bridgerton in a much more contained.
Well, it's also way more modern.
Modern. And actually something that I really like about Dickinson is it does, at least in the first season, it sort of ebbs and flows into its modernness. Like there are times where it'll feel more classical.
There were some moments where I was like, that's just straight up drama. That's like, and it's such a weird 30-minute show because it's really funny sometimes, but then it's also like sometimes Mr. Dickinson closed fist punches Emily in the face.
He did not. It was a backhand.
Such a loud sound.
It was loud. Well, and they made sure that like the maid was like eavesdropping, and I was like, this is odd. It's also not a laugh a minute. I want to make sure that people know that it's the kind of thing where it's like, if you're not sort of just amused by its entire existence, then it may not be exactly your thing.
There were like a handful of things that were so interesting as metaphors for like current things that I really enjoyed, where like the one of them was when they were in their Shakespeare club, they were putting on Othello. And I think it really, because she was like, Othello is black. And the rest of them were like, no.
Jane Humphrey just goes, I disagree.
And she's like, you can't disagree.
She's like, it's not subjective.
It doesn't make sense. You in the part. And aside from everything else, Othello is black.
Wait, what?
He's black. Othello. The Moor.
The main character.
Yes. Jane, Othello, he's black.
I disagree.
What? You can't disagree. It's a fact.
Like, what?
Have you been paying any attention at all?
But what it felt like to me a lot was, it goes into the, like, only gay characters can play gay roles things. And so it's like they're doing a lot of commentary on stuff. And they did one on, like, nudes, like, leaked nudes and stuff. And it's like done in a really interesting, fun way. And I think the cast has, like, a super amount of fun with it, which is great.
Yeah. And that's actually something that I would desire a little bit more from the show, is some of the periphery characters to come in a bit more.
Sure.
I'm in this weird, I love an ensemble. If you know anything about me or the show, that will be...
It is pretty ensemble-y, because there were a couple of episodes where people showed up and I was like, oh, you're here in this. Like, this is your role in this. Like, Jane and her family showed up at like 3 Dickinson family functions. And I was like, oh, cool. I dig that.
And by the second half of the season, we had scenes with like the kids together.
Yeah.
Especially because one of the ones I liked, and it was a super triggering episode to be watching in January of 2021. But the election.
Oh, yeah.
And it cuts to the girls' sleepover.
Yeah.
And they're like discussing the politics of like Civil War era politics.
The first thing that's funny about that is like downstairs, Mr. Dickinson is like, I can't handle their insipid nattering anymore. And then it cuts to them upstairs and they're having really thoughtful chats about policy.
Situation. I can't bear another moment of their inane chatter.
I mean, the whole Kansas-Nebraska Act was just a massive overreach on the part of the slave power. They actually tried to repeal the Missouri Compromise. Like, do they really think we're going to admit more slave states into the Union?
The problem is they control the government. We have to build a coalition that can block their legislation.
Jane, you're, like, so woke.
I know.
while they're all like doing needlepoint. And it really did it rang true in a way that, yes, obviously I know this is not authentic, but I kind of think tonally it is. Yeah. I think we have this notion. It's like the bloopers from old Hollywood movies.
But I was only nuts to that goddamn line. I cannot remember it. Oh, no, Emily. I am not lost. Oh, Christ, son of a bitch.
Well, I can't work around here. Oh, you're following me. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
What was it? What was the barrier that... Son of a bitch.
Goddamn son of a bitch. I love it. When Olivia de Havilland passed away, they released like a supercut of hers, and she was so funny.
It does just go to show you that we have this image of the past being hyper sanitized. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, they were projecting that even then.
Yeah.
Like the reality of it gets down into the nitty gritty.
Well, it's the type of thing where, now, like current...
I mean, obviously ways of speaking change.
Yeah,
but...
and I think current modern society is so much more open in general about stuff like that, but it's like, you would have only written about, like, sexual things to, like, your very closest friends, and the majority of people, their things were never saved. Their letters just were thrown away when they died or whatever, and so it's so fun with people like Emily Dickinson, where it's like, yes, the language is different, but it's like she's talking about all of these real things that happen in her letters and poems and stuff. I think it's fascinating. It's like people have been the same forever. People are people.
How do you like the poetry?
I love it.
Yeah, I'm not a big poetry person.
That's one of my favorite parts, and I do love that they... it's not that I can't recite a lot of poetry like verbatim or anything, but I do just know, parts of a lot of poems. And so the very first episode was Because I Would Not Stop for Death, He Kindly Stopped for Me. And I just think that's one of the best poems ever written. And it's just, I love that it sort of comes up in these like fiery glowing words on the screen in her handwriting as she's thinking them up. I think it's great. It's such a cool imagery to happen. Mm-hmm. And it happens in every episode as she's like, verbalizing these poems. It's great.
How do you feel about death?
Oh my God, I love it.
It's Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
And the carriage is so...
And her red dress.
She's always in like a scarlet dress. But the only issue I have, and it was more so towards the back half of the season, when he's good. He's good in this, but especially when he gets more intense emotionally, I wish they did something to his voice.
That would be cool. Yeah.
I wish it got darker or deeper.
But I do want to say, I think he does a good job. Mm-hmm. He's not an actor, but he's pretty good at it. Because when he does get angry with her, where he's like, you think this is about you and you think we're dating? This is nothing. I don't care about you at all. And I just was like, I mean,
this is high praise for me, but it goes to some American Gods.
Yeah.
Anubis places.
It definitely does. Where he's like, I will cease thinking about you the moment that you are out of my sight.
And that's so good because literally the next time he sees her, he goes, now I remember.
You remember, yeah. It's very, very good. And I do love it. And Emily Dickinson is one of those figures and one of those poets who I truly believe that she was born in the wrong century. I think she would have been extremely successful today. Like, just because of where she was born and how she was born and the family she was in and everything.
But one could argue we couldn't be where we are today without
her. 100%. It's tough to do stuff like that, but it also is. I just think, she might have needed a little medication kind of a thing,
I was gonna say, you're going to some Nanette places.
Yeah.
Some 100%. Hannah Gadsby Nanette.
And it's just so interesting. And I think I didn't know that she wasn't published until after her death, until we started watching this. I thought she was, and I guess a couple anonymous poems she was able to sneak in, but her sister Lavinia is the one who published all of her poems after she died, and I had no idea.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up Lavinia.
We can talk about Lavinia.
I love Lavinia.
Anna Baryshnikov.
It shows.
Yeah, it definitely
does. Okay, the thing about Lavinia, and I would venture to say this is true of the show as a whole, and maybe it's the millennial part, but it's like, you know, obviously we're 35 years old, so we are millennials, and most of our points of reference are personal. You know, unfortunately, I'm not that kind of person that has just combed through decades of media trying to like understand the world. I mean, to an extent, but so, you know, when we came of age in the 90s were very cliquey. There was cliches and stereotypes and stuff. And nowadays for kids, those lines are way more blurred. There still are archetypes, but the options are more.
It's less gross because it's like whoever Channing Tatum in 21 Jump Street can also
race
be like,
and class and gender have less of an
in media.
No, even though in the real world they have less of a bar than historically they have, or they're smaller. Or I'm not trying to under.
Things are still bad, but they're better than they were.
Yeah. And so a lot of the characters in this show, it's like Lavinia 10 years ago would be a prissy brat. And she has elements of that here.
Yeah, but she's like,
way more layered.
She's really grounded and in a fun way. And it's like, it's also interesting to me. Again, this is stuff that I'm not 100% sure what's historically accurate or not, but I love that they were like, it was just like her and Emily and the mom were running the house. They didn't, because they're not a rich family, but they're influential, and it sort of feels, I mean, they're not poor. No. That's a beautiful, well-appointed house and everything, and they're all wearing jewelry, and they all have new dresses all the time. But it is interesting to me that they didn't have a maid until Emily was like, I literally can't do this.
Well, and actually, I mean, to piggyback off of Lavinia, Mrs. Dickinson, Jane Krakowski, we were talking earlier that Jane Krakowski has the market cornered on like waspy Republican wife.
Yeah.
And she's very good at it. And that's a very strong flavor that can easily be overused or misused. And I think the show has really found a way to pepper her throughout the show in really interesting ways, because the whole thing with the maid, when it's brought up again, she's angry about the maid because it's offensive to her. And the audience,
the implication is that she's not doing a good job, and that's why Mr. Dickinson hired a maid.
And us, the audience, at least I wasn't like, oh, she's being spoiled or bratty or control. It's like you actually feel for her plight. And it's like she's a woman who exists really well within her time.
Yeah.
And
Emily is not.
And so
that's why they're always against each other.
But also the times where they can get along. It actually is just very, very... It
also is so fun to see Jane Krakowski still being herself, but this is like one of the more chill and nuanced performances I've ever seen.
Well, because I mentioned, I was like, they tap a little bit into her darkness, which, I mean, it's an actress, a character like that is ever present.
Yeah.
But still, it's like her depression at Edward leaving, because I had to actually pause for a second. I was like, is she just I was like, did I miss something, or is she just depressed that he left?
Just sad he went.
and the gradual descent into the madness.
Well, because that's one of the moments where she and Emily come together, because Emily ends up being like, well, we have to still have Christmas. And so she makes an entire Christmas dinner. It's amazing. It's like really cute. And I don't know. I like it.
And I think her sister, it's, we should know her name by now. She comes up so much.
Susan.
It's Susan from Friends.
What the fuck was
she is gigging right now.
She's also Lavinia, which is also Aunt Lavinia. Jessica Hecht.
Right, Jessica Hecht. I think she's going to still be on the show in season 2.
I hope so.
And so that...
She's just getting railed in the last episode.
Well, again, this show, it is weirdly refreshing, considering that it's like old-timey and an old-timey mashup in a place where that's a little bit on trend.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting for her to be so put off by the, like, old widower hitting on her.
Sure.
And she wasn't.
She just was like, let's do this.
Well, she was suffering from what they what they diagnosed as widow's euphoria.
She was like, I just left immediately for Spain after he died. I laughed the whole way. It was very funny.
Because you mentioned this earlier, but I want to really get it in there. One of our favorite shows, kind of all time, is Another Period that aired on Comedy Central. And this is like a much more down-to-earth version of that. I want to talk about mania. Another period was manic.
This is sort of trying to be legitimately correct. It's like the language only and only sometimes is incorrect, but the rest of it is.
But even the tone, but my point is that if you liked that, there's a good chance you will like this, and vice versa. Comedy is a little bit more subjective, but to mention another period, it was relatively accurate.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's kind of like how the sitcom Scrubs. Was the most medically accurate show on television.
Or the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet is like more correct to the original text than anything. Do you want to talk about Emily and Sue?
Sure.
Sue is a little bit of a cipher to me.
Yeah, I found her boring. And in a way that at first I was sort of like I thought of it as like a failing somewhere. But now I'm sort of like, I mean, you kind of need...
Puppy. Belay by the door. You can't get out right now. We were talking about Sue.
I was finding her kind of boring in a way that I was thinking of it as like a failing somewhere. But then the further into it I got, I was sort of like, I don't know. I mean, the show does need it when someone is, ahead of their time. Oftentimes you need someone who is of their time, but gets them standing next to them.
Sure.
And I was actually weirdly taken by how kind of just blatant her stuff is, Emily's stuff. Like the fact that it's Austin, that he knows about her and Sue, and presumably Lavinia too.
Like Lavinia knows also. Yeah.
She made a face, or she reacted once, I think during the wedding. She was like, well, we all know. And it's just sort of, I don't know. It's weirdly refreshing in a way. You brought up Sue, and I was like, I don't have a specific thing to say, but
the thing that
although we are hoisting a plot on her.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. That doesn't make me feel good.
No, and we literally just watched it on Bridgerton.
We did just watch it on Bridgerton. Well, it was different on Bridgerton, but I don't know. I just simply didn't need her to get raped by the man she was being a governess for. And then it was like, because
I think because it took so long to reap.
Well, it took so long for that to happen, and then it was so lampshaded.
Well, that's what I mean. For the consequences you'd kind of forgotten by that point.
I was like, he's just a lecher. It's whatever. And then she's pregnant, and I was like, well, she didn't have sex with Austin.
It was also very subtle in a way where it was like, I didn't need to see the scene, but also you could have, if you weren't paying attention. Yeah. Because I didn't remember.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's hot, and you were like, yeah, well, he's gonna rape her, and I was like, huh? I missed it. Yeah. I was just kind of
he's just leering at her.
Well, once you pointed it out, I was like, oh, duh. Ugh. But Sue doesn't need to be, granted, I don't know the history. I was like, Sue doesn't need to be put through the ringer further.
Yeah.
In a way that
her family died. I just
we noticed.
Yeah.
Because she keeps talking about it. The humor, it's also weirdly dark considering it's a half-hour comedy.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying is it's like, it is funny, but it also has these real moments of sincerity and seriousness.
Because the digging up the baby was digging up the baby's grave.
What I'm saying is that I'm digging up a dead baby so that you can be buried next to me.
I beg your pardon, dear?
No, it's all good, Mom. I've hired 2 grave diggers. They're gonna do it today. You know that Beecher baby? You know the one, Ichabod. He's in the spot next to mine, and that's where Sue needs to go, so that we can be together forever in the afterlife.
Is that legal?
Okay, it was only funny because
it was
Austin,
funny every which way.
It was.
What are you talking about?
The funniest part then is because Austin was like, "Congratulations, Sue! I'm digging up a dead baby so we can be together forever," and I'm just like, "Whoa, whoa." And I did also love Emily's justification where she's like, the Beechers went back to England and that baby died 27 years ago, so it's basically an adult. And I'm just like, I guess, man, whatever.
I did want to say that we mentioned the maid. It's Darlene Hunt as Maggie. She's Marsha Langman from
Parks and Rec.
And when she shows up, you think it's just going to be, at least I thought it was going to be like a one-off. I actually thought they were going to like get rid of the maid. And she ends up not only being on the show, but being this weirdly beautiful part of the show.
I ended up really, really delighting in her character. It was really lovely. She has this beautiful moment with Emily
in the barn where they're talking about religion. I was like, oh my God.
Well, and it's also like, it's such a New England in the 1800s thing because she is an Irish Catholic and the Dickinsons are Protestant. And she's like, I know that, you're Catholic, but you can pray in the house. And she was like, no. She's like doing it outside. And I was like, all right, man. And then they do have this lovely thing. And the story that Emily tells is like so horrifying. And I really, really liked the way that Maggie was like, you just come to it in your own time. If you try to feel it if you can.
Because she's like, also, it's like she's not trying to be like, well, you can join my cult. She's like, just the door's open and then leaves the door open. Yeah. Well, even like the eclipse, it was like the way that they were working.
I just got chills. The eclipse, when that song started playing and they're at all the different ways they're all looking at the eclipse. Even Lavinia was doing it through the tree branch. Oh my God. Oh. I literally was sitting there and I was like, oh, it's so pretty. It was great. I loved that episode.
I did want to talk about, to see if you had any specific comments about Lavinia's nudes leaking. She drew a picture of a portrait of herself naked.
Yeah, drew a nude portrait for the town scoundrel and gave it to him. And then she was, because I think by that point he had started turning around on her, but he was still a scoundrel. And so he showed it to everybody, and then she got to painting class, and they were all like making jokes about her. Because Jane basically said the thing and was like, well, if you don't want everybody to see your nudes, like, don't give them to boys. And I was just like, oh man, this is like such a tough episode. But I did like how at the end she
because I was devastated because I thought she was burning them.
I thought
there's a scene of her going through her sketchbook with all of these good for a teenage girl sketches of her own body. And we talk about how I am so passionate about this. There was an art exhibit where they put like phones or mirrors in the hands of art of nude women. And people's reactions were so strong. People were like, this is disgusting. This is vanity. This is like what, blah, 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 blah. And we were like, no, what we actually did was remove the male gaze.
Yeah.
When a woman is appreciating her own beauty, that is how strongly a gut reaction people have to it. Seeing it with this actress playing this character in this show. And so you think that she's going to like burn all of these drawings of herself. And she doesn't. She just goes and posts them to everybody's easel.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it.
It was so good. I think she's so good. And
Anna
Barishnikov.
Yeah. She is, I think, one of the like good finds of this show. Because I've never seen her in anything else.
That Barishnikov. Yes.
Mikhail Barishnikov's daughter. But she is so much fun in this. And it's such a like, it is a down-to-earth character, but she does have these teenage flights of fancy.
Well, because I was saying earlier, it's like she's playing on like three separate cliches. Yeah. Because sometimes she's daffy, but she's not stupid. And I obviously am fine with Emily and Sue. I like all that, but I did really like Ben.
Okay, if for any Friday Night Lights watchers, he played Luke. I can't remember now if it was Cafferty or Rafferty, but he was like after Saracen left, he was like the quarterback, and he's very cute. He is still very cute, and I also liked him a lot. And their whole thing together was also very, very cute. You hear him coughing that first time, and you're like, tuberculosis. I know you have tuberculosis.
Feels like there weren't many men that understood a person like Emily.
Because even her father, it's only sometimes does he like get it, and the rest of the time he's like, you're a disgrace.
And he's very handsome, but the way I described it was I said he looks like a human that was turned into a Ken doll and then turned back into a human. So it was like comically sculpted.
He's got a lot of neck too.
And chin and the sideburns, but they walk the tightrope. I think it's been positively
well reviewed,
received. And then the handful of people that didn't like it said it was a mess. It was totally all over the place. And I was like, I mean,
that's like half the point.
Yeah, I was like, but millennials, what are you going to do? Like, it is a beautiful show. It's not an expensive show. Like, it's not a bloated production.
No, yeah.
But it has the money that it needs.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah. Did you want to talk about the music?
I mean, it's the anachronistic music. Because actually when Bridgerton was trending, Elena Smith?
Something like that, yeah.
I follow, yeah, Elena Smith. She was a little salty about it. She was, because people were like, "Oh my god, it's so clever to put Billie Eilish in like a period piece," and she was kind of like, "Oh wow, who would have ever?"
Here's my thing: neither one of these shows are the first thing to ever do that. So it's like you can only be so salty about it. But I like the Billie Eilish. She used a different Billie Eilish.
Well, yeah, it was Bury a Friend and not Bad Guy. I don't think that they over rely on it.
No.
Although the bass drops when the bass drops. It's very booming.
Yeah. It is actually sort of interestingly diverse because there's like an Asian boy that they're friends with, and then there are black people, but
it makes me feel weird about it.
Yeah.
Similarly to Bridgerton, where I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I love it, actually. I'm totally fine with blind casting.
I don't think this is blind casting.
Well, again, because they kind of acknowledge it within the show, and that makes it confusing.
Sure, I can see that. I can see that for sure. How that is, because it is addressed, but not like enough. And the fact that they're in Amherst, Massachusetts helps because it's
does
because black people are free for
what
sure.
Is what's her name? Beth or Betty, the dressmaker? Yeah. She's really great.
She is
and great. Because
Henry.
I didn't even realize Sue was pregnant at first. I was like, what? They were talking in code.
Literally, as soon as she was like, oh, either I took your measurements wrong or you're getting a little thicker. And I was like, God damn it, she's pregnant. And I was like, ugh.
Well, when they were talking about eating too much.
Yeah.
She was like, I ate too much before my wedding, too. And I was like, what are we talking about? What's going on?
Might be a hidden meaning.
But, and then actually, what note did we end on? Did they got married?
They got married and they were flying away in a hot air balloon?
Oh, yeah. She was really stupid, like traipsing about in her wedding dress. I was like, he had every right to be.
I think he had every right to be a little annoyed, but he not letting Emily be at the wedding was, I think, a little too
Emily's much. Kind of the worst.
She is kind of the worst, but it's her brother and her best friend. It's like, that's so shitty. And she was making her such a lovely bouquet. And
the bouquet was real flowers.
Was it?
Uh-huh. That hanging in the background was not, but
there's only so much.
Yeah, we're gonna watch season 2. I don't know that we don't have plans to cover it. I guess the muse would have to wallop us aside the head
if it
within 30 minutes.
If it is as much better as we've heard it is than season 1, then
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
you might get a Dickinson part 2.
Yeah, just give it a shot. That was my issue. Is I just wanted to do my part to give this
just
little
watch
gem.
it, man. It's cute.
It's light.
Hailee Steinfeld is actually great.
We watched it in one evening.
Yeah,
I mean, we started at like 5, and then
it's really, I really enjoy it a lot. Plus, they've got some really good dresses.
They're not accurate, but it's
they're not accurate.
Well, I mean, they have zippers.
Oh well.
But it suffices. It fits because I mean. I was having issues with Jane Krakowski's hair before I was having issues with any of the dresses. Get the clip of the luscious flowing locks.
Yeah. I'm going to have to add flowing luscious hair. Sorry, as in loose hair. Is that a problem? It was kind of like a really big no-no at the time. And if you didn't put your hair up, you would have them hidden underneath a cap. And... Ew! Oh my god! I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. Disgusting! I'm gonna write that down. No caps.
Wouldn't they be wearing caps? That's the fact that they're like pushed to nausea at the notion of not being able to see her hair.
Oh, it's so good.
So yeah, give it a shot.
I agree. Right. Definitely 2 thumbs up for me. All right. Well, you can check out Dickinson on Apple Plus TV.
Apple TV Plus
division sign. And then let us know what you think. You can follow us on Twitter @SoI'mWatching or Instagram @SoI'mWatchingTheShow. We also have a website, So I'm Watching This Show, which links out to everything. And other than that, just please review or subscribe and like on
also rate
YouTube.
and review.
Yeah, rate and review on wherever you listen to podcasts.
We need help getting out there. Yeah. And thank you to our patrons. We couldn't do any of this without you.
We also have a Patreon that links out from the website too. If you feel like throwing us some if you feel like tossing some coin to your witchers.
Much like the poet.
Yes.
We need to be patronized. Please patronize me.
Please patronize me. Amazing. Okay. Goodbye.